If you are someone who has always struggled with rhythms, maybe you're an older beginner, maybe your education in school for music in elementary school, maybe you didn't even have a teacher, maybe it was spotty. That was my experience, so you are not alone. I kid you not, I did not learn music, how to read music, until I was a freshman in college. And even then, this system right here that I learned was during my student teaching. So I have a degree in vocal music education. I learned the way to organize this through my student or my cooperating teacher. Her name was Jennifer D. Francesco. She was great. And this really was a light bulb moment for me. So I would like to share it with everyone here as well. This will help you to really solidify what all these rhythms are and to really understand it. Now, I will mention that this only makes sense if you are using a time signature that is in 4/4 or common time. Now, it's called common time because it's so common. If you are looking at something that has a time signature of 6/8, there would be different rules applying there. I will also be making a video on time signature to help people understand that as well, because I feel like that is something that people get very, very confused on easily. So if you're someone who's always struggled, keep watching this, because I promise you this will make things so much easier and less confusing. So starting with our 1-beat rhythm chart, right here we have the label. So we've got 1-beat rhythms. The little heart symbol is just representing your heartbeat to remind you that we're talking about beats right here. I'm going to explain what each of these 4 columns mean right here as well. So the first column that you see, all these numbers that are underneath the 1-beat rhythm chart, is the number of sounds that they have. I'm going to repeat that one more time. These are the number of sounds that these rhythms have, not the number of beats, the number of sounds. The second column is the symbol that we're referring to. The third column is the nickname that I give it. Now this is using the Kadai system. There's many systems or ways that you can call this. You might have teachers who might call all this stuff different things, and that's okay. There's many different methods for this stuff, but this is just a quick way for me to show you. And then lastly, this fourth column here is the textbook name that you give these rhythms. Now, I'm from the US. I've heard people in the UK, for example, call things like quavers and stuff like that. I'm using these words instead. So now that we've looked through all the columns, looking through each row, I'm going to explain it, and then hopefully all the other charts will make more sense. So for the first row, we've got this symbol right here. It has 1 beat, but it has 0 sounds. So it means that you are quiet for beat. The nickname we'll give it is rest, and then the textbook name is quarter rest. So for example, if we're in 4/4 and we've got 4 beats, and there's a rest on beat 2, so here's our 4 beats right here. 1, 2, 3, 4. If the rest happens on beat 2, it would be 1, 3, 4. You're quiet for a beat. Okay, next row. We've got this symbol right here. It looks like a D colored in. And it has 1 sound. Nickname is ta. Textbook name is quarter note. So this means that 1 quarter note equals 1 beat. So if I have 4 beats and I do all 4 quarter notes, it would be ta, 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 ta. All right, third row, we've got these symbols right here. So this can either be connected together, or they can have these little flags up top. Nickname we'll give it is TT. They have 2 sounds. So why we're saying 2? Because you can have a single T by itself as well. You could just see this note by itself, but it's just to help you understand that 2 of these now equal 1 beat. And the real textbook name for this would be eighth notes. So if I were to put a eighth notes on beat 2, so if I've got 4 beats and everything else is a ta, it would sound like this. Ta, ti, ti, ta, ta. So there's 2 sounds, but only 1 beat. All right, our next row, we've got these, actually the next 2 rows, they're similar rhythms, but they are opposites. So as you can see in this symbol here, the first half of the symbol looks like a TT or eighth notes, and the second half of the symbol looks like the rhythm down here that you'll see. And so it's a hybrid. So the nickname that we're giving it is T-ticka. Real textbook name is 8th 16th notes, and they have 3 sounds. And then same thing with the other. You've got ticka-t because the tick is in the front, and these are 16th 8th notes. So when you see these, again, there's 3 sounds to them, but there's only 1 beat. So and it's going to be a faster sounding one. So you have ta, ta, ti, ticka, ta. You hear how fast that ticka has to happen. Ta, ta, ti, ticka, ta. Or if we use ticka, ti, let's do that on beat 2. Ta, ticka, ti, ta, ta. And lastly, for this last row, we've got ticka, ticka here as our nickname. You could see that it looks like 4 tas put together, and then you have 2 lines up top. And then it has 4 sounds. So 4 sounds to 1 beat. Ticka, 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 ticka. It's the fastest one that we have so far here. And then we also have the real name for this, which is 16th notes. So these are the most common ones that I see when it comes to 1 beat rhythms. Is this every 1 beat rhythm in the entire world? No, it's not. But this is what I feel like, if you know this, then at least you've got the basics as far as 1 beat rhythms go. For our 2 beat rhythms, right here in our first row, we've got this thing that looks like a hat. And I'm sure you've heard this from many teachers, but the nickname that I think makes sense is half rest, and then the textbook name is also half rest. Has 0 sounds, so when you see the hat, the thing that looks like a hat, think of that ha sound, H-A, and that will help you remember that this is a half rest, because when we get to our 4 beat rhythm chart, there's another rhythm that looks similar to it, but it's the opposite. So that will help you remember best. So this means that you are quiet for now 2 beats instead. So if we have a half rest that happens on beat 2, it carries over to beat 3. So if I'm saying this with the ta on beat 1 and 4, so we've got ta, ta. Or if you want to speak it out loud, you can say ta, half, rest, ta. Our next row, we've got our 1 sounding rhythm. So this has, remember, everything has 2 beats here. So this has only 1 sound, but again, all of it's going to carry over for 2 beats. So let's put our 2, so the nickname that I give it is 2. Now I know with Kadai, I think they just still call it ta, and you just hold it longer. I just label it 2 just because it's 2 beats and it's easier to remember that way. And the real name for this is half note. So if we've got 4 beats here and we start with tas, you're going to say ta, ta, 2. You hold it for 2 beats. And then lastly, in our 3rd row, we've got, this one you actually do kind of see often. So this is a syncopated rhythm. Syncopated rhythms mean that it purposely kind of skews you off of the beat. So right here you've got a quarter note with a dot next to it, and then an 8th note. So the dot means you add half of whatever the note is worth. And remember, if you look at our 1 beat rhythm chart, a quarter note is 1. So half of 1 would be 0.5. So it's a beat and a half plus another half beat, which is equaling 2. So the nickname we give it, I feel like this nickname makes you remember it so much easier. So what you're going to say, just listen to how I'm saying it. Tom-T. Again, Tom-T. The real technical name for this is a dotted quarter 8th note. Has 2 sounds. So this has both 2 sounds and 2 beats. So again, let's put this on beat 2, which means it's going to carry over to beat 3, the very end of beat 3, and it will feel like it kind of skips into beat 4 if we're putting tas around it. So we would have ta, tom, ti, ta. Again, ta, tom, ti, ta, For 3-beat rhythms, we have 0 sounds for our first row. Now we already know this rhythm here because it looks like a hat, so we should already guess what the real name would be with that half sound. And then it also has a dot there, so you just call it like it is, a dotted half rest. Now when you're speaking it in practice, it would be hard to actually practice the rhythm and say ta, dotted half rest, because that's not what it sounds like. So I think it's easiest to just say rest 3 times when you see it. So for example, it could be ta, rest, rest, rest. For a second row here, for our 1 sounding rhythm that has 3 beats. So now we're taking a whole 3 hearts when we're writing it down. We already know this rhythm from our 2-beat rhythm chart. So it looks like the letter D that's not colored in. So we've got our half note, and it also has a dot here. So we call it a dotted half note. The nickname I give it is 3. Again, I think Kadai uses something different, but just calling it 3 so that you can remember that it has 3 beats. Now, remember that the dot equals half of whatever the note's worth. So remember, it's a 2-beat rhythm that has a dot. So it has 2 beats. You add half of the value. So half of 2 is 1. So now you have 2 plus 1 equals 3. That's where we're getting the 3 beats from. Now, to be honest with you, the dotted half rest I don't see as much, but you will see the dotted half note all the time in all sorts of songs. That's why we created our own chart for it. So if we're putting this into practice, putting it on beat 2, it would be ta, 3. And finally, our 4-beat rhythms. So right here, we've got 4 beats. So it's going to take up all 4 hearts when we are practicing it. Now here is the rhythm that I was saying, where it's the opposite of the half rest, or it's the opposite as far as the symbol. So here you have the line up top and then the square at the bottom. A trick that you might have heard from some of your other music teachers is that for the real name, we say whole rest. So think of like this top part here as like the ground, and then the little rectangle at the bottom is like a hole in the ground. So hole in the ground, whole rest. It will help you to remember those two with the names correctly. When putting it into practice, you can say rest 4 times, rest, 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 rest. Or you could say, if your teacher has some other method for you to do it, just practice it like this. But I'm just trying to show you a different way of remembering this stuff. Now, this means that you would be quiet technically for 4 beats. When you're practicing, you can say rest 4 times. But if you were actually singing a song, then that whole measure, probably if this is in 4/4, you would just count to 4 in your head. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's meant to actually be silent. Now, finally, our last row here, we have one that looks like O, but it's a little bit thin up top and below. And it looks, think of it as like if you were, for the whole rest, if you're looking down the hole, a whole note. So that can also help you remember that these are both ones that take up the entire 4 beats, whole note. The nickname I give it is 4, just so you can remember that it has 4 beats. Again, any method is fine, and it has 1 sound. So this means you would hold this for a total of 4 beats. So if we were to say 4, you would say 4. Or if you were singing, you would hold that note that you're singing for 4 beats. La, like that. Now, some common things that I have seen some students kind of mix up a little bit. When we look at all 4 of their rhythm charts, our 1-beat rhythm chart, 2-beat rhythm chart, 3-beat rhythm chart, and 4-beat rhythm chart, you want to make sure that you are holding the notes for the correct amount of time. When it comes to 1-beat rhythms, students do pretty well with them. So if you're saying ta, 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 it's usually fine. What I do find is when they do assessments on their sight reading is that they're not holding notes that have more than one beat long enough. So for example, let's take a look at a 4-beat rhythm here. Let's say you see a whole note and you are in a test and you've got a full 4 beats, which means you want to hold that in your head. You want to hold that counting to 4 in your head. So if your teacher, so I'm using 4, but if your teacher uses ta, let's use ta as an example and you just hold it for 4 beats. Ta. In my head, I'm counting 1, 2, 3, 4. A big mistake that I see a lot is a lot of kids will go 4, 4. They only hold it for the same amount as a ta or a half note, which is not correct. Even if you say the correct syllable that your teacher is wanting you to use, it's still not correct if you're not holding it for the right amount of time. That's one big common misconception. Another one is mixing up rhythms that have 2 beats and rhythms that have 2 sounds. Remember, this is a TT. They're 8th notes, they're fast, they have 1 beat. Or half beats, 2 half beats. This one is a half note and it has 2 beats and 1 sound. So 2, 2, you hold it. Some people will also mix up ticka ticka and 4 because ticka ticka has 4 sounds and only 1 beat because it's a fast rhythm. Ticka ticka. And then 4 has 1 sound and 4 beats, which means you hold it. So I really hope this helps. When I learned a way to organize it like this when I was in college, that was what I needed for it to click for me. So what about you? Please let me know down in the comments if this was helpful at all for you. And if you are interested in learning more information about how to learn this stuff easier and quicker, check out the description down below. And subscribe and like and all of that stuff. Feel free to take a screenshot of this. I'll also probably be posting this on my website, and I will be posting more quick music literacy stuff in the future. Have a great day.